Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 6 of class. This week we're going to be covering amateur esports. So, with amateur esports, obviously, collegiate is considered to be a part of this, and honestly, is a big portion of amateur esports, at least where like the industry is right now. For the sake of the course and the fact that we covered collegiate last week, we're going to omit it from this amateur esports section, just because I did feel like it needed um, its like own dedicated week last week. But what we're gonna do is I'm gonna run through some quick kind of overview of amateur esports and maybe some of the different things that I would like you to focus on. Then I'll go through, talk about the discussion, how I want that formatted, things like that. Um, so first, amateur esports. So these could be literally anything from like your weekly that you play every Friday to literally challengers for like League of Legends or something like that, right? So it's very all encompassing. Again, high school, college fits somewhere in there. These could be like random leagues or something that people play in. I commentated for an amateur Call of Duty league for a couple different leagues for a good few years. Um, but they were basically people who weren't quite in the pro scene after Call of Duty franchise that wanted a place to play to showcase to maybe show some of these pro teams, get picked up by some prevalent challenger teams from those pathways. So like different just tournaments, ways to showcase, ways to play, to be involved. Lots of different things goes into amateur esports. I'd say that it's very important for a number of reasons. One, just growing the scene from that grassroots level. A lot of community engagement. That way, people can be a part of and compete in this game that they love. Maybe not just watch. And in some cases, it is a developmental pipeline for professional players. We saw this a couple years ago with League of Legends before there were a lot of formats, budget cuts, things like that. I mean, 100 Thieves had a couple different academy teams that they would essentially you would see players go from one team to the next level and then eventually on their LCS team before everything got restructured and switched and stuff. So a lot of good examples of it being a pipeline. Um, and the structure of amateur esports like super varies by um, by game because like technically professional esports varies by game too because we can't just say the pro scene is run by the developer or things like that because then Smash doesn't really have a pro scene. But it obviously does. There are professional players in it who compete at some of these like highest level events and stuff. So this is kind of that about that the in between of maybe what is almost pro but maybe isn't considered that upper echelon, things like that. So a couple different levels that we'll talk about. Grassroots being one. So these are a lot of times those community driven events, whether it be like a local land tournament or like again your weekly that you may go to. Um, Gaming clubs on campus or something like that. Gaming cafes, creator organized events. So like a big streamer or something wants to host a tournament the community can be involved in, that could be something there. You'll see a lot of charity tournaments for the same reason. Yeah, basically just small organized events or leagues that really anyone can be a part of. This is significant again because of that community building, maybe some early player exposure, things like that. Could potentially be some like scouting done at these types of events, but typically these are like either crowdfunded, paid for by the entry fees to the weeklies or different things like that. Sometimes, like for an example, like the creator tournaments or stuff, a lot of times we'll have a sponsor backing them for any prize pools or things like that. Kind of another level. This is that really weird in between. Like your semi-pro ish. This could also be where like collegiate would be slotted in. Um, so these would be like more structured leagues with different prize pools and pathways. This would be an example of what I commentated for back with it was a AGN. They that league shortly after I left, and well, kind of during while I left, I got into some stuff. You may be able to find them online if you look up AGN. Um, Trying to host in-person tournaments through COVID. They did not do a great job of handling that situation, and is why I stepped away. But then there's also something like the K7 League, which I commentated for. Just organized, structured Call of Duty league that teams would pay to be a part of. There was pricing, there was weekly, basically matches, and then tournaments and stuff that would go through. So a lot of really cool things there. An example in collegiate that's not like structured through NACE or someone like that. Potentially CLOL is a good example of what like this tier of amateur esports could look like. But also some like semi-pro leagues, like, well, no, that's kind of falls into the next tier. Um, yeah, the purpose and significance of this one is that bridges the gap between like the casual and professional play. So these are those people who are maybe doing a little bit more than going to their local weeklies. They're taking that next step, trying to find more organized events to be a part of, play more regularly, go through these different types of things. Next tier would be like challenger level, I guess. So, or tier two. A lot of times these would be like your direct feeder systems into professional esports. Any type of league that's franchised that has like a challengers league. This is what we're looking at. Something like Call of Duty League. League of Legends has challenger scenes, so does Valorant. Um, this could also be something like qualifiers, like RLCS, the qualifiers and stuff that they do. Um, Essentially, what we're looking for here is that feeder system, definitely more organized. These are the players who are maybe in and out of the pro league year to year, um, and different things like that. So it's fully competitive. There's sponsorships, salaries. A lot of times it's unstable because it's a tier two org. You see a lot of them closing down, not getting it, but also there's some really successful ones that can kind of go through and have like made their way into some of those franchise spots and stuff, right? But a lot of times this could be like a stepping stone for players. Like, hey, if I want to be a pro Call of Duty player, I need to be in the challengers scene, going to those Call of Duty tournament hosted challenger events and winning and doing a good job so that players, coaches, GMs, stuff like that can see. A lot of challenges with amateur esports as a whole. It's kind of the shortish breakdown of the different tiers. That is not all encompassing, and I know that each of you will have good examples. We'll get to that with the discussion. But some challenges that amateur esports face, just to cover these for you guys. Um, Many orgs struggle without sponsorships. That's where a lot of the dollars and stuff come in for esports. I mean, if you're an esports team, you're not keeping the money that your players win, hopefully. Um, so you have to support it in other ways. We talked a lot about this in our last class. Um, but yeah, so a lot of orgs will struggle without their sponsorships. Players, there are plenty of times that they self-fund for travel or equipment or things like that. And then there's a big lack of developer support when it comes to a lot of these amateur leagues, right? Like there's times where it's just completely ignored, um, or shut down in some cases. Uh, Lack of institutional support. So amateur leagues and things are basically up to whoever decides to run them. This can lead to a lot of issues. Like I was on call with the head of an amateur league when he got a cease and desist from Activision for trying to run a Call of Duty tournament in COVID, and I thought it was going to be online. He was trying to hold a LAN in Indianapolis. Um, so yeah, there's a whole lot of things that can come from that lack of like institutional support or backing from some of these things. That it can just be some dude who thinks he's doing the best thing, knows what he's doing, and doesn't. Another one, burnout, career uncertainty. You see so many examples of players just grinding through challengers or something like that. And then harsh reality, they just don't make it. So has a big effect on players or just people's work-life balance, mental health, and just a lot of times don't have a fallback. So it's a big challenge that you see in some of these amateur things. Not to say that there can't be successes. There's a lot of good examples of success Um, I think some that I pulled, and this one's maybe kind of a reach. It's hard to depends on where you see in Fortnite, but Booga, right? Like those were just online tournaments that led to something like the World Cup, where like this is just some dude who's grinding Fortnite tournaments, does good enough to get invited to World Championship, ends up winning. I am not the most knowledgeable about this subject, um, but when I was doing some research, MKLeo came up as one who came up through the grassroots scene before moving on to go through those big international tournaments to be successful. You'll see, and then there's been a number of Valorant and League of Legends professional players who have gone through the tier two to get picked up by some of those bigger orgs and stuff. Some successful amateur leagues, for example, um, LCS Academy system was great before the recent changes. I'm not as in tune to what's going on there now, but that like pre 2023 LCS Academy was a really good example of that tier two system and what like it can be. It's just something to look at. So future or potential future of amateur esports. Hopefully, we start to see more expansion through the collegiate scene. I know we didn't focus a lot on that today, but some good expansion there. Potential like more developer backing with these leagues will be really important for the growth of amateur esports, and then also like a growing investment in those tier two tournaments, whether it be open circuits like Halo does, where any team you can play, qualify, join, potentially make it to a pro LAN to be invited. VCT's recent updates, uh, or just different things like that, to where that you really see that like investment in the tier two, so that it can be something that grows to be successful. That was a lot for a lecture. I wanted to just kind of really focus on some of these things with the amateur scene. Hopefully, you're able to get through me just talking for 12 minutes. Sorry about that. Hopefully, my voice translates well to 2 times speed. I don't know. But, anyways, let's take a look at the weekly. Oh, I didn't set this up. 1 second. Okay, it was like a couple seconds for me. But here is the um, assignment for this week. So give you something, a little bit of intro here, so that if you like look at this before you read the video, you have an example. This week's topic is amateur esports. We're going to take a look at the tier two scene, as well as like any more grassroots or local. Some of these can be considered professional, but we're going to group it here, as there will be a different focus when it comes to those um, pro specific leagues and stuff. Areas or examples to consider are the various challenger leagues or events when it comes to some of those pro leagues like League of Legends, Valorant, Call of Duty. Also look to your local event organizers or weekly tournaments. We're going to look at how each of these operate and how they may interact with one another or the pro scene. Basically, the question that I want you guys to answer in this week's assignment are I would like you to pick a specific game, preferably one that you're not super involved with, so that you have to do some research too, and give me a breakdown of the different type of amateur esports events and offerings that they have. Try to cover as far as local to challenger level if you can. Obviously, this depends on your game. The reason I'd like you to pick something that you're not involved in is just, again, to make you do some more research, to be exposed to another esport and kind of see how they operate. What I want for this breakdown is basically give me a breakdown of all the offerings and go and list them by level. Obviously, give a shout out to the pro scene at the very end, because that's like top of the top, all that stuff. Macho Man cut a promo. Um, but yeah, those types of things. But then make sure you give me like a good description about like how you feel about this. Is it a good supported game? Are there a lot of opportunities for people to be involved? I'm saying this, and that's not on the screen. Going to add that sentence so you have a little more clarity when you go back to actually write this. But if you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out. I hope you guys have a good week.